Welcome back to the weekend show. Today on the lifestyle segment, we're discussing mental health and depression. Depression is a common mental health problem that causes people to experience low mood, loss of interest in pleasures, and feelings of guilt and self-worries. It's true that we all feel sad, moody, or low from time to time, but those living with depression are often sad for longer periods of time and sometimes without any apparent reason. On today's episode of the Weekend Show, we have to discuss these issues.
We have with us Rukayya Ibrahim Iyayi. She has a foundation which deals with mental health and substance abuse issues. Welcome to the show, Rukayya.
Thank you so much for having me.
We also have with us a writer, poet, lawyer, a fashion illustrator who uses art and creativity to tackle mental health issues and stigma around mental health. Welcome to the show, Maryam.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, ladies. So WHO, the World Health Organization, has pegged 7 million Nigerians as the statistics of people suffering from depression. I think that's actually relatively low, given the fact that we have 200 million people in the country. So can you tell me more about this growing phenomenon of depression in Nigeria? We see a lot of young people committing suicide. Last 2 years, we saw an advent of people jumping off Third Mainland Bridge, people drinking sniper, and all these different things. So can you tell me more about this? What causes depression and why is it sort of being heard of now on a large scale in Nigeria and amongst Nigerians? I'll start with you.
I think things are becoming a little bit more difficult in Nigerian space. Like the population is high, crime rate has increased. There's so much pressure we put on ourselves to be a certain kind of person that we're probably not, but the society says, oh, you should be this person. Especially considering the culture of shame that we have in Nigeria, that you have to be a certain person, that, oh, if you're not this kind of person, then don't speak. You should be ashamed of yourself, basically.
You and Maryam, the cause or the leading cause of depression is due to the pressure from family, from society, from social media, what have you. But giving education, for instance, how do we balance encouraging our children to strive to be great versus putting too much pressure on them that they end up being depressed, then committing suicide or relying on certain substances to get by? What's the balance? Because I know growing up, my parents told me, you can't come to my house a failure.
Yeah.
You can't, any of your grades, even if it's math you're struggling in, science, you can't get below a C.
You can't even come second.
You can't, you can't, you just can't do it. And that encouraged me to study. That encouraged me to, when I was graduate with a 3.8 out of a 4.0 GPA. Like, that pressure was good for me because I knew I couldn't afford to be a failure. But how do we balance now with this advent of, not being able to, not wanting to trigger your child, not wanting to, exert too much pressure that it affects their mental health? Where is the balance here in good parenting versus also ensuring that your child is healthy mentally as well?
Yeah, let me go for that. I think our parents, this is what they know best, sometimes to threaten. That is what they know best. But right now, with more awareness and more exposure from us, you get to know that there are certain things you talk about to specific kids. So for instance now, if I go to counsel parents on first aid counseling, so the first thing I say is, you need to master communication skills as a parent. And what are these communication skills? Your style, your content, and your audience. Who are you dealing with? You have 2 kids. They are 2 different personalities. So how do you approach them? That is very important. One, you have to shout on them. The other one, I'm the kind of person that you can't force me to do something. You have to tell me, okay, Rukayya, please can you do this, and then I will gladly do it.
In the same way.
Yeah, but the moment you think you must pass your exams, I will say, oh, okay. Because I really can't handle that pressure too much, but when you call me and say, just be a good girl, I'm proud of you, even if I'm naughty, even if you are not, just tell me, okay, I know you can do this and you do it. I would try to prove it to you that yes, I can do it. So as a parent, you need to understand communication skills, how you can communicate with each individual independently. And with that, because already life is difficult, whether in Nigeria or not in Nigeria. Life is just too difficult. And then as a parent, you are there to guide, to reduce the pressure, not to add to it. But as I said earlier, it's not like the previous generation knew any better. This is the best way they know how to do their parenting. But us as this present generation, we need to change things. And this is one of it is through this communication skills. We need to know our style to use, our content to use, and who are our audiences. Even if the age bracket, you can say, get up from there. And you can say, can you kindly get up from there? It's the same message,
and
but
I'm
different
sure our
styles.
parents are watching now and they're like, can you please?
Of course.
Like, I don't even have kids, yes, but like when you see them, beginning of the at the beginning of the training, we share flyers, we share questionnaire, and after the training we share. You see how huge this makes. Just a simple 5 minutes training. I think we need to do more.
So, and it's good Rukayya has said this because we also get a lot of conflicting opinions. I was watching a video on social media a week ago where someone pretty much blamed depression and all on parents and the socialization of the children. But there's also another part, Maryam, which comes to trauma. So before this show, we had people sending questions and comments, and someone said he had a wife who lost a baby, and so she was depressed and then suicidal for about 4 years, and she's gone past it. Some other people spoke about academic pressure, but trauma plays a major role, which we don't talk about. We hardly notice when it comes to these issues. There's postpartum depression. So in Nigeria, for instance, everybody just tells you it'll be fine. The churches tell you not to call your problems problems, call them challenges. And so we just push these things down. At what point do we start talking about these triggers, like losing a loved one, losing something dear, those memories which may have affected your growth process, which now affects your mental health? At what point do we need to educate people about the triggers and also how to manage trauma to help us have a better mental health?
Okay. First of all, we need awareness. You need to know that, oh, this situation I've been in has harmed my mental health to an extent. What am I going to do about it? Some people, prayer works for them. Some people speaking to their pastors, their religious leaders works for them. But I always advise people to go and see a mental health professional.
But it's expensive. I've heard of places where it's about 50,000 naira per
Very
session.
expensive. Very expensive.
I've been to places 10,000, 20,000. You just need to do your research, honestly. And you might not be able to go to it regularly, but at least go once. They give you materials to an extent to help you, and then you take it from there. And personally, I always advise people, apart from seeing a mental health professional, there are ways you can help yourself. Music works for a lot of people. If you love music, listen to music. Listen to music that will heal you in particular.
And not depress you further.
And not depress you. That's very important. Poetry works. As a poet, I enjoy reading poetry, especially when I'm going through depression myself. I read poetry and I feel better about myself. Watching TV, you have to be careful not to watch something that triggers you further. That's very important. Speak to a friend or a loved one, and you have to be very discerning about that as well, because there are many people who will make your issue worse.
I was about to speak about that. So there was someone who met her therapist, and therapist took the whole session and went to explain to the young lady's mother.
I saw that on Twitter.
Yeah, I did too.
That is terrible. I mean, it's there should be laws that guide against patient-client
confidentiality.
Yes.
Yeah. So why are we seeing that happen in Nigeria? And
The
to add
Nigerian
to,
factor.
which is unfortunate,
Very
and that's
unfortunate.
one thing I want to discuss, because there are people watching that don't have anyone to talk to. A lot of young people especially have no one to talk to. Today is what, June 15th?
Yeah.
Yes.
Today marks the 4th month that I lost my younger brother in a car
I'm sorry
accident.
about that.
And the way I grieved personally was going to talk to a professional. I had to do that for my mental health. My siblings, they said, "Oh, Sasu, you're doing therapy. Why don't we will do retail therapy? That would help us." So it just went to show that everyone had their different way of grieving and getting over this. You never really get over it, but you know, you also have to take setting measures to ensure that you are on the right track mentally and you're healthy, you know. So there are people who are watching now and saying, what do I do? You know, I'm completely lost. I have no one to talk to. I don't even know how to move forward with my life, you know. So what advice would you give them? Yes, you said talk to someone, but as Andy said, it's quite expensive. You know, a session with a therapist, you said it ranges from like 10 to sometimes 50,000. And people who are struggling with what to eat today are not going to pay 10,000 to speak to somebody. And we have this culture that doesn't believe in therapy, that doesn't believe in talking about your problems. You know, there's this witch or wizard in the village that will hear you and make it worse. You know, so what advice would you give to people like that?
I would say, well, like I've said, you can speak to your religious leader, but in everything, in whoever you're going to speak to, you have to be very discerning about who you're speaking to. And also know that the person basically doesn't know what they are talking about. They are just going to try and help you. You have to take it with a pinch of salt, basically. Take that with a pinch of salt. And you can find online, there are apps like American, US, and British apps that help you, that give free advice, that give free counseling. Also in Abuja, I know of a therapist that does free counseling occasionally. His Mind's Haven on Instagram. He does free counseling, or there are group therapy sessions. I was invited to perform at a group PTSD session that was free. 30 people came together and talked about their traumas and how to move past their traumas. And also your friends. Your friends are very important. Like I said, you have to be discerning. Personally, I try and have this conversation a lot. Like, I talk about my depression on Twitter, and some people have a certain discomfort about it, but I am okay with this because over the years, I've seen how people approach me because I'm so brave with speaking about my depression. They try and talk to me. They ask me for my number. "Oh, I'm going through this. Can I speak to you?" And it's very important to not necessarily say the right thing, but you just have to not say the wrong thing to worsen it. And you just have to give people support. I always say that we have to start from a place of love in everything we do. Just give people kindness, support, love, empathy, and let them heal from that.
Okay, talking about safe spaces, stigma, and shaming, in the recently concluded general elections, a particular candidate tried to use someone's mental health issues to score political points, saying this person who is talking has mental issues and you can find his case in XYZ place. That's how much, at a high scale, the stigma and shaming is in Nigeria. What are you doing regarding safe spaces for people suffering from mental health issues and then substance abuse?
Yes.
And what should we advise people to do about those safe spaces?
One of the things we do is to raise awareness. I think as Nigerians, we're afraid of knowing what is unfamiliar. So anything that is not within us, that we're not used to, we tend to disregard it. So we need to speak about mental health. I think 3 in 4 have some certain mental issues. Not 1 in 4, 3 in 4. Somehow, whether you have
So
mild...
you saying of the 4?
Yes, yes. I tell you, if you speak to Osasu, she will tell you, okay, she's grieving, she has some... You have your demons.
I mean,
you go in your room, you have your demons.
Which is the reality.
I lost my both parents. I just lost my mom recently, so I know how much work I have put to myself. And do you know what I healed? Because I have an idea of what mental health is. That's what healed me. And just an idea. Because when I see difference, I said, okay, this can't continue. So you need to know yourself as an individual, mentally, physically, psychologically, intellectually. As a person, you need to know yourself, first and foremost. it's work. It's not easy. It's really work, but it's worth it. Once you know yourself, you pay attention to the little details. If, for instance, your monthly cycle, once I'm getting to know I spark up easily, I'm like, okay, calm down. Calm down. Just
it's coming.
Yes, it's coming. And then avoid avoid the crowd, avoid people, avoid any
possible triggers.
Yes, avoid any negative person that will trigger it, and then you will just go way her, and then you say things that you're not supposed to say. Just avoid it. So you need to know yourself as a person first. And once you do, I think everything will fall in place. But as you said, the stigma, I think you see there are different kind of stigmas. There is self-stigmatization. You do for yourself as well. There are those that someone does it, and then the community, cultural stigmatization. So for yourself, like I said earlier, know yourself. When you know yourself, nobody will tell you anything that will bring you down. And that's, I always tell people, women, girls, know yourself. You have the power to conquer, to stop, and you have no limit.
That's a key solution to this
Yes.
issue we're discussing for both women and men.
Yes.
A lot of people try to copy what other people are doing as solutions. Like I said, I gave myself an example. I had to speak with someone. I had to speak with a counselor. My siblings decided to do retail therapy.
Yeah.
So
But you see, because you know yourself.
because I know myself, I know what works for me. I know
Yes.
what works in my
Yes.
mind. They know what works for them as well, like what works for their minds as well. So don't try and copy and paste another person's solution to fix the issues in your life. Think, you know, internally, what works for me, what gives me that balance, that serenity.
Life
that peace that I
medication
need.
is different.
Exactly.
Even if it's marriage, medication in marriage is different. She can take Panadol, I will take Claritin. The same problem, marital problem. It will solve hers, it will solve mine, but it's different medication. So
Speaking about medication, can medication cure? I'm not talking about for the interim period, for life. Can it actually, is it a sustainable way of curing depression?
it's suppressed. Like I said again, it's all back to you as an individual to know yourself. But the sad reality is, once you are hit with depression, you really don't have much time to know who you are as a person, because you're dealing with a lot of demons already. But then as a therapist's duty, or the counselor's duty, to make you understand who you are as an individual, for you to go even if you need time alone to ponder on who you are as a person. Knowing yourself is like a degree. It takes years. I'm still knowing myself. It takes years.
It's a journey.
It's a journey, it's a journey. So you need to understand the journey. You need to understand what works for you, how it works when it works for you.
Yeah, and it's important to, while getting help, both medical help and the psychological part, because most people may go, and especially for things like anxiety, you get drugs that suppress the anxiety, but like Mariam said, speaking to people about it, having safe spaces, sometimes taking yourself away from the mix does actually play a part. So people should try to balance both scenarios, from getting the medical attention and help to getting therapy.
You know, like the when I had the mild anxiety, what I used was maca roots.
Okay.
Maca roots is a herb.
Okay.
Maca, then roots, like is a herbs. I do it like a smoothie, and I take it because it works for anxiety and depression. But that is just what I was taking, and the rest was I go rollerblading. I started learning French. I started swimming classes. So imagine me every morning, 6 to 7, I'm in the park rollerblading. After that, I come home, I'm tired. I sleep from 7 a.m. to maybe 11. I have French class by 12. I'm back 2. From 2, I have swimming classes 2 to 3. Like that, these are my weekend, like literally. So I really don't have time. Once I'm back home, I'm just tired. So before you know it, it's just passing by.
But Maryam, let me bring you in here lastly, because we've run out of time. There are people, Maryam at least can, Rukayya has actually, she has control of her schedule. So she can afford to do all these activities that heals her, of her mental health challenges.
Yeah.
But there are people who are watching like, I work, 18 hours a day. I don't have time to do the things that give me pleasure, that, helps me, that heals me. What advice do you have for people like that?
Well, personally, I love reading. I grew up in a culture of reading. So whenever I have 5 minutes in a day, 10 minutes, I'm either listening to music or looking for new material to read or searching YouTube. You'd find the most amazing things on YouTube that will help you. So yeah, reading in particular, listening to music. I have Netflix on my phone. If I feel myself sinking into depression, I'm going to open my favorite show and just watch for at least 10 minutes. Give myself something to laugh about for at least 10 minutes. And then, yeah.
Mariam, Rukayya, thank you ladies so much for your time.
Thank you for
very
having
much.
us.
You're most welcome. We'll take a short break right now. When we return, more on the weekend show. Don't go anywhere.